NASA, we have what we call a Center of Excellence for Collaborative Innovation. It was stood up in 2011 at the request of OSTP. And basically, we work across all of NASA and across federal agencies to help educate and understand and use crowdsourcing tools. And we do that through the NASA Tournament Lab. We're part of a larger collection at NASA of crowd-based activities. We're not the only gig. There we have Centennial Challenges, which do kind of X Prize level, multi-year, multi-million-dollar prize type stuff. We've got the world's largest hackathon with international space apps. We've got a bunch of citizen science. If you're here tomorrow, Mark Kushner's going to do some really good work, and I think there's actually a couple other presentations all around that. We do student challenges, and then we have an internal crowd that's part of our organization as well, NASA at Work. Our external brand is this NASA Tournament Lab, and so they don't know about Centers of Excellence or anything like that. What they know about is the NASA Tournament Lab, and that's really not a specific crowd, but rather a collection of contracts. And it's the way that we actually take the work at other federal agencies and the work at NASA projects, and we basically facilitate running challenges with both our internal crowd as well as a series of contracts. And so these contractors, we have, I think I've even have a few off of here, there's like 17 or 18, but we use these as a way to engage public in making progress on exploration, which is really one of the best ways we've found to engage the public. For years now, NASA kind of has held out what we've done as, hey, look at the really cool things that we at NASA are doing. Don't you wish you were us, right? Like, and here's a sticker. And what we find is when we engage the public through these portals, through these crowds, we get emails back that say, you've changed my trajectory, you've changed my perception of what I'm able to do and made my dream come true because I've gotten to work on your NASA project. And it's really brought a new dimension to that whole thing. We do that in the context of our Solve community, that larger set on nasa.gov/solve, where all of our challenges across NASA. And we do that, all of this work in partnership with Kareem Lakhani's lab at Harvard Business School, the Laboratory for Innovation Sciences at Harvard. These crowds are the key, and our focus and what makes us different than the other pieces of the crowd work at NASA is that we work with what we call curated crowds. These are vendors, these are the Hero X's, the Innocentos, the Luminary Labs, Freelancers, Yet To. And in each of these, they're a little bit different. They typically are crowds that the members have joined because they have a passion. Right? A passion for problem solving, or a passion for software development, or a passion for filmmaking, if you're at Tongle. If you're a mechanical engineer, maybe it's GrabCAD. The hardest part about this chart, by the way, is keeping these numbers up to date. I think Freelancers almost to 31 million, GrabCAD's up to 5 million. These are very large worldwide crowds. And the thing about it is, they've all joined because that's their passion. So they're already upskilled, right? And then they're in those communities, they are actually practicing the skill. They're actually upskilling and learning more and more. We recently did a challenge with Kaggle, and it's amazing what's going on in the data science world and how that community comes together around machine learning and AI. Whoops. Trying to go faster than I want to go. Okay, well, all this says is we've done a number of challenges. I'm just going to keep going back and forth, see what it does. I show this, we've done about 330 some odd challenges in the 5 or 6 years that we've been around. And what I like to show is we do technical solutions, we do ideation, we have some consulting on how to do challenges, we have CAD work, algorithm work, software work, technology surveys, graphics, videos, and other kind of stuff. But notice, these are all across a bunch of different platforms. And some of these platforms are million-dollar type challenges, and some of these platforms are, I think I've done a $50 challenge before. And it's the full range of different kinds of things we can do. And we're seeing, this is a magical button. We're seeing some really interesting stuff. We keep lots of statistics on what we do because we really feel that that's an important way to understand, is this stuff working? Is it worth it? Because part of the deal here is that we're trying to spread this like a virus, right? We're trying to show people this is a useful tool and you should use it. But that is a long track, right? It takes a bit of proof to do things differently. And so in these 300 and some odd challenges, we have a success rate of about 94%. But recognize that's not a 1 or a 0. Some of those, about a third, are fully solved. But then some we just advance towards a solution significantly or incrementally, likewise. But we really have very few where we have absolute failure. And that's pretty impressive, right? I mean, we are getting successful results from the majority of the challenges we're putting out there. And of those, we can show that about 76% of them get implemented, and we're getting cost savings on 83% of the challenges that we do when compared to how we would have done that if we'd used traditional means. And the average of those cost savings is something like 40%. So we're seeing really positive results from this, and we're starting to gain, and this is just some of our data. I've got case study after case study after case study, but I like to just boil this down to just a few, right? So one of the things that we see over and over is that we get significant cost savings. We've done a number of robonaut vision algorithm challenges. I think we're setting up for a third one. And on the last one, it cost us $60,000. And when we asked at the end what it would have cost with traditional methods, they said, oh, it'd be about $650,000 and about 3 times the schedule. Astronaut email, 142 versus almost 300K. Urine volume in microgravity. This is one where we did internal, so this isn't really a fair cost comparison because our internal platform is our really good enterprise knowledge sharing. And on that particular challenge, we were about to go do 3 to 5 year development, multi-million-dollar development to actually develop this ability to measure urine volume in microgravity. NASA has a lot of bodily fluids. I just apologize for that. Space poop, it's urine. But the thing about this is we did an internal challenge to say, hey, does anyone have any ideas on how to fix this problem? And it ends up that in a separate organization, literally in a lab 300 yards away from the home organization, was a prototype for another use that could directly be applied to this. And so if you have a large organization, you know all of those stovepipes, right? All of those areas that people are working heads down, they don't have enough time to trade information. And what we're finding is challenges taps into the human network where people know that information and they join it up and we get the cost savings as a benefit. We get increased performance when we do algorithm challenges like Asteroid Data Hunter. You know, we can find more asteroids, which is good if you don't want to be like the dinosaurs. Lunar Mapping and Modeling Portal. This is one where it wasn't an algorithm, but it was actually an architecture change that we were able to realize when we made this stitching software into a multi-node architecture that we could go from 19 hours down to 6 hours of processing time. That translates into money, right? Data-driven forecasting for solar flares. We had actually targeted going from a 2-hour prediction capability to keep the astronauts safe to a 4-hour, so they could, if they were EVA and we found out there was supposed to be a solar flare, we could actually get them inside in time. Ended up getting an 8-hour prediction capability, twice what our target had been. And what's really neat about this algorithm is the guy who came up with it for us when we ran this on an incentive was actually a retired cell phone engineer who happened to have an undergraduate degree in heliophysics. And it just so happens that the magic that made his algorithm work so well was when you took RF frequency, pulling out signal from noise that you have to do there, taking the math from that and applying it to heliophysics. And this is that kind of diversity that we're really seeing in the innovation space that is important and is the reason that we're doing open. Because the heliophysicists never would have found that, right? Because that's just not where they were working. And we find that over and over, that you have to get outside if you want to find the big jumps. No. We also find some previously unsolved problems, like literally that we had had for years trying to solve. One was our Mars balance challenge, where we'd been throwing solid tungsten overboard just in order to kind of tweak the trajectory as we came into the Mars atmosphere. And it turns out we could actually do something valuable with that mass, which if you're going all the way to Mars, trust me, you don't like to just throw mass overboard in case you need to. And so that got us a really nice solution from an unsuspecting character that we never would have known to go out and find. One of our projects was really blown and going on trying to get inflatables to work, and found in our labs that we couldn't measure strain in Kevlar in those conditions. Did a quick challenge, found 3 different solutions very quickly. And what I really like about that is the quote from these guys is, these 3 solutions were so simple and so obvious, we couldn't believe we didn't find them ourselves, which in the innovation world is what we hear over and over when you get a good solution. The DTN security architecture, we actually had folks tell us that this was impossible to do, that timing, synchronization, and key exchanges couldn't be done in a delayed or a disconnected network. It ends up the solution was the Byzantine Generals problem, which is one that we as NASA had developed to synchronize our computers, but no one had thought of applying it over here in the security world. So these things, all are things we've put out to the crowd and come back with and giving us some significant performance. I want to shift a little bit to our adoption and what we've tried to do to make this stuff work, right? So we are trying to get NASA to use this. We're trying to make it easy for other federal agencies to use it. And some of the really important things that we've learned is we've got to have a lightweight process. We've got to make it this as frictionless as possible. And that means we've got to manage a pipeline. We have got to pull the right folks in at the right time. We've got to structure to be flexible and tailorable. Every challenge is different, and there is not a one-size-fits-all. I already said minimize effort. Make it repeatable. Make it something that we can just turn the crank on and get through quickly. We have a multi-vendor IDIQ that we use to access our main vendors, right? Our HeroXs and our top coders. And we basically put an RFP out to them, they bid on the task order, and then we award to whoever's the best fit. That process is a 3 to 4 week process. And we try really hard to make sure that doesn't grow so that we can quickly turn that around and get those things working. And then investing in the tools and templates and things that actually make all this happen. Diane Finkhausen at GE, and a good friend of mine, had this great quote that I stole from her, which is, you gotta be a Sherpa. This is new stuff, and one of our big roles is to actually carry the packs, to carry the loads for people that are from projects so that they can learn how to do this. They're not going to be able to do this on their own. You can't point people to a portal and say, go do a challenge. It just doesn't work that way. And so we work really hard to make sure we've worked out the contracts, that they don't have to go have a conversation with procurement. Same with legal, same with mentoring and having examples, having ways to actually define these and processes to pull out a problem. Most people, projects we go to talk to, don't think they have any problems. They think they've got it under control. And it's not until we say, yeah, but you know, we're not actually gonna get to Mars unless we can take your entire life support system and make it half as massive. So how do we cut that in half? And now suddenly I've got a gap, right? Now I've got a big problem to go solve. But it takes that processing with each of the teams to actually make that kind of connection for them so that they can actually see the need to actually go do this. We, like a lot of different organizations, have the same problem, right? Incrementalism. We are stuck in the safe. When a project manager or programming manager gets 2 proposals in front of them, and this is to improve the system by 5% and is 95% sure gonna happen, versus this one that will give a 3x improvement, but it's a little riskier and it may fail, you're gonna fund this one every time. And so you're stuck with 2, 3, 4% incremental improvements, and we don't get those big leaps that we need. We talk about the moonshots and the big things that we need to do. And so we're constantly having to push. The other thing is that I think a lot, when we've talked to industry and other folks, the antibodies come out. When we want to do something new, oops, showing my frog too soon. I love that chart. Organizations they resist. This something new they don't want to do. And there's two really good case studies at Harvard Business School. One is actually with us, where we at NASA, when Jeff Davis first rolled this out and said his organization is going to do this, they rebelled and said, no, we're not. And in fact, John Windsor's here that used to have victors and spoils and can show how Havas, once they got this great capability, killed it because the antibodies come out. They really see the crowd as a threat, and there's some work to go here. And one of the things that we've done since that initial work is we've quietly been executing successful challenges. And we've been going around to the groups, not to management, to the groups and saying, look, this stuff works. How can we make this work for you? How can we get you in the door with this stuff? And we've quietly been executing, and that's how we've gotten to 300 plus challenges. And those kinds of stats of 94% success rate. It's this slowly turning up the heat, and we're coming to a point now where we think, this is just too superimposed. The frog is okay. There's no harm done here. The last piece here is really where we see things going, and that is we hear this a lot now, future of work, and a lot of people have talked about this, but we're starting to see this significant shift, and our world has been in this one crowdsourcing contest area where it's all about challenges. And the way I like to talk about this is fundamentally what we're trying to do is match a need to a capability, right? And for business, we do that all the time. We try to match that up as efficiently as possible. And in the innovation space, where we need the really creative stuff and we don't know who to ask, that's where crowds are really great, right? Because you don't know who's going to answer your question. We don't know who has to do it. Contests are awesome for that. But there's also freelance work where you may have problems where I just need a physicist that has this kind of expertise, and I only need them for 3 weeks. And going and finding those people and being able to access those is kind of this new model, and we're seeing some exciting stuff in all of this. The communities of practice, like I said, top coders, the Tongles, these are where hundreds of thousands of people are coming together around a technical area and vamping off of each other and increasing their own skills as a result. And those global connections of passion are really crucial to actually getting the skills necessary and to pivot on this rapidly changing set of skills we need, right? In companies can't do that. Companies can't actually keep their workforce on the cutting edge all the time. It's almost impossible. But crowds can, in ways that are surprising. And then the diversity aspect of this, I think everyone knows, the innovation comes by having this diversity. And when you have hundreds of thousands of people, trust me, you have diversity. This is just magical. This is from a report that came out from Upwork and the Freelancers Union, which I think is really telling. This is just the last 3 years, and the blue line is the rate of increase of freelancers, and the others, the regular workforce. If they extrapolate that out 10 years, in 10 years there will be, or actually 8 years now, right? There will be more people freelancing than there are people working for companies. And we're starting to see that and think, how do we need to adjust how we, we're in the federal space, right? So our procurements and our workforce is all very governed. How do we do that if this is the trend? And this is kind of my get off the stage chart, but open is the future, and innovation is no longer optional. We have to actually reinvent ourselves and get the big wins. And increasingly, crowds, gig workers, freelancers are really becoming the resource with those capabilities that are able to keep up with the changing times. Curated communities are really attracting the passion and expertise and upskilling it. And these open methods are extremely effective. We are seeing it over and over that they are just better than our traditional methods. And those that fail to innovate will be left behind. I love that chart earlier today. It's like 52% of Fortune 500 companies, I think it was in the last 5 or 10 years, are no longer with us. And so this is a real thing. And with that, I am done.
Great.
So
Thank you very much.
Back in time.
Thank you, Steve. Sure. Thank you very much. Quick question for Steve. Mike?
Fascinating. When did you begin this kind of
Sure.
innovative work and kind of the spark?
Yeah.
I mean, you have the passion, but how long have you been involved?
Sure. So several portions to that question. You're actually going to hear some from somebody who was involved in some of the earth stuff. In the early 2000s, so 2005, 2006, there started to be some recognition of this. In our organization, Dr. Jeff Davis at JSC and Jason Cruzan both ran some early pilots in about 2009-ish, and they found that they'd done some benchmarking with industry, saw that this was out there, ran some pilots, got some good data. That's when OSTP came in and said, hey, we actually want this stuff to be government-wide. We need the government to get on board with this stuff because it is so powerful. They're seeing this stuff. And at that point, we stood up the Center of Excellence. I joined in 2013, so a couple of years after that stood up. And actually, I read the Jeff Howe book back in 2009, and I instantly joined like 5 communities because I saw this is the future. There is a lot going on in this space now compared to then, but it is where things are going. So.
And the question is like how fast that future is.
Yeah, every time I think I know how fast it's going, it goes faster. So and we've been networking together over the last few years with a bunch of the people in the room here, and we're all trying to figure out exactly how fast this is going and how to make it work for us, right? There are certain things about this that we need to get ahead of. Portability of reputation, things like how do we get the supply and demand to match up in a way that's constructive to the workforce? How do we keep the U.S. competitive, right? In the freelancer world, everyone else has health benefits and they all have a much lower standard of living. So all of that freelance curve, everyone else is ahead of us. In the U.S., we have some significant challenges ahead of us in that area. And there's some really interesting work by like Paro.io and some others that are looking at the U.S. problem and attacking it. So.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Steve.
Yeah,
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Cheers. Okay.